I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in their cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep.
This episode is not sponsored by anyone. It's just Chris and I, so it's pretty fun today. I have Chris here. I believe, can I say core maintainer of Astro?
That's awesome. Yeah.
And also lead of Starlight. So I just took down our banner. Let's put that back up. Building docs with Starlight and Astro. Super stoked to talk about this one. Seems like Starlight has really kind of taken a forefront for Astro lately. I want to know more about you and how you got involved with the team. So let's start there, Chris. I just want to know, like, how did you begin with Astro and kind of a little bit more about your background?
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me. Yeah, I have it's kind of like an accidental background to some extent. I'm not from like a traditional coding background or anything, but I needed a website a couple years ago and had really liked like the component-based way of working, that has become so common in many frameworks. But I had already like built something and be like, wow, I'm just shipping so much JavaScript to the browser just to like do this. I don't really need that. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to build a blog or whatever. And found Astro and like ended up in the Discord community, ended up like helping out once I'd learned the ropes a little bit. Yeah, thanks to their like welcoming and amazing community there, I eventually ended up sometime later with work. So it's like a little over 18 months now that I've been kind of working to some extent. First on Astro, first as like a maintainer of the documentation website over there. So like helping build out new features for there. One of the first big projects we had was like building out a tutorial, like with state trackers and like progress trackers and like fun quizzes and stuff. Like that was like part of my work. And then more recently transitioned into Starlight, which has kind of grown out of that. Starlight, for the people who don't know, is a documentation building tool. So it helps you build a site for your docs. But it's on top of Astro, so it kind of like comes with a lot of the good stuff that Astro does, and builds on a lot of the stuff we've learned building those docs websites ourselves. Like we were kind of like, hey, we're constantly answering questions from people being say like, oh, how do I do that cool thing you do in your docs? I'm like, I want to do that too, and like, can we grab that component from your docs? And be like, a lot of the time, it's not so easy once something's just like built in your site, like to just rip it out and plug it into your own. Like often you can try and like if you know what you're doing, you can do it, but like often it's quite fiddly. So yeah, Starlight is the kind of organic growth out of that to make sure we can share as much of that with others. Yeah.
So Starlight was never like an intentional project. It kind of became a project over months, year type thing.
It was intentional once I started it, but like, it was kind of came out of very obvious need. We had this really old docs template that you could use, like a starter template, but it had like, I don't know, it like diverged from our actual doc site by miles. So people would take it being like, oh, cool, I get to do stuff like Astro's doc site has, and then it would miss this feature, miss that feature, still use some old design, that kind of thing. And so I knew that like we had planned some redesign work on the doc site, and I knew that if we were going to like invest in doing that work, it would be really cool to not end up in the same position where maybe we refresh the starter template and then diverge again. We'll look now into what like in more detail of what Starlight is and how it works, but that's no longer possible because of how it's built. It's an npm package you can install and stuff. So any upgrades we make there, make it down to all users, not just us.
Well, that makes sense. So kind of not the traditional background. Still, you're still a developer, but are you like coding a lot these days, or like what's?
Oh, these days, yeah. Like these days, I'm like front-end dev, basic. I mean, when you're working with Astro, it's kind of, I guess it's to some extent full stack, right? You're like involved with both processes and things like that. But like front end is kind of where I feel comfortable.
Nice.
But yeah, no, my background is as a musician. I trained as a musician. And then I'd always built like websites on the side, like musicians need websites. So like you'd be like, my friends would be like, oh, can you build me this? And obviously I had my own website to build and stuff.
How many people I've interviewed that are musicians that built like a site for musicians. It's unbelievable.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a great training ground, I guess.
I remember
Uh,
as like a school kid, like, "Can you play the piano? Do you know music? Do you like it?" And it was always like that engineering mindset apparently, so it fits really well apparently. All right,
yeah. I don't know. I've heard that a lot.
without further ado, I think Chris is gonna help me basically create a Starlight site and get rolling, and then we can take questions as they come along. I see quite a few people out here. I see Sarah out here. I always mess up the name. Atherva made it.
Atharva?
No,
Yeah, I think it's Atharva. Yeah, I don't
Atharva.
have
Yeah,
pronunciation. I'm not
I'm
sure.
terrible at pronunciation. So, without further ado, let's get started. Um, do switch up our view here. There we go. So this is the Starlight's kind of main site, and you can get out to the GitHub page really easily, and also just start on the getting started. And the interesting part, this little inception, right? Starlight's documentation is built with Starlight, right?
Correct. Yeah, it'd be weird
Cool.
if it wasn't, right?
Yeah, totally. So today we're gonna build a little document site using Starlight. What do you think?
That sounds really great. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Twee's here too. Hey, Twee. Um, yeah. So this is that I hopefully like the quick start. I don't know. You've played around with Astro before, right? Like I know
Yeah,
you've had
so
Matthew on the
I
screen.
on and off want to run Astra as our main site, and more so lately on, but I've done too many rewrites on the site between Next.js and now we're on SvelteKit. So I've kind of been using SvelteKit, and the interesting part, of course, which maybe we should talk about a little bit, is if you haven't used Astro before, is you can kind of use any component that you want. You can use React, you can use Svelte, like you can plug those in where needed. But the
Yep.
core engine of it all, and that's we can get into island architecture if you want, that side of things. But the core of it is kind of it started at first as a static site generator, right? And that's Astro's mainly like Markdown or MDX, and that's how it flows into it.
Yeah, that's kind of the origins. I mean, Astro's become increasingly powerful, I think, over the last like
Yeah.
year or so. It can do fully like dynamically rendered, like on-demand rendered SSR apps where like everything's using user state or whatever. Like that's all possible.
Mhm.
Still think that like I hear a lot from users being like, oh, I tried to set up a site with MDX and some other tool, and it took me like a week just to get my MDX config set up, and then like it just works. Like, how come it's so simple? So there's been a lot of work put into just like, oh, you want to use MDX? Here's the tool for that, and it's like one integration. Or in the case of Starlight, it actually just comes bundled because we know if you're using Starlight, it's very likely you want to have a component in your
Sure.
MDX document. So we just support that out of the box. But yeah, you're right that one of the nice things about about Astro in general is that it supports all those frameworks. So if you're a Svelte person, like you really like Svelte components, and maybe we'll see that later on the stream, like you could plug in a Svelte component, throw that in your docs, and that's totally possible. But equally, if you're a React person, you go ahead and use React. Or I think it's also possible to use multiple of these, right? And normally we say like that's not really the intended use case. Like you're probably not building a site which has React and Vue and Svelte on it. Like
Yeah.
maybe at some like really
Mm.
big scale where like different sections of a site are managed by different teams or something. Maybe that makes sense. But
Yeah.
like on the whole, I'd say that's rare. But in a docs case, I don't know. Maybe you have like a design system that has
Yep.
like a web component version of some components and a Svelte version of them and a React version of them. That's a thing that like different teams are using, and you could totally have those all on the same doc site. So that kind of thing would work, and maybe is a really valid use case.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's interesting too. Like I see a lot of people that like they don't want to go down the React road, but then there's this like amazing React table or something that was created as a library, and like one page will have just that piece to it, which is awesome because Astro will handle it and it'll load it, and like that one page might be slower than the rest of the statically generated pages and things like that. So it's a really cool option. I love it. A little bit of I guess self pitch here. So I did interview Fred probably a year ago. What's the date on this? Yeah, wow, we're creeping up on 2 years ago now. Jeez, oh Pete's. Kind of the early beginnings of Astro. So if you definitely check out that podcast if you want to learn more about the beginnings of Astro and early on before what are we up to? Version 4.0, is that right?
Yeah, 4.0 is out
Yeah.
since December.
Nice. So this was, I think, right around 1.0 dropped, maybe, but pretty early
I think
on.
so. Yeah, I don't remember. Maybe it was a little later 1.0. We may have been like building up to it then. I don't know.
Yeah.
We've got
Fun
a little
talking
bit of
tech.
stick from people being like, "Hey, you keep releasing all these major versions." Like you know, I think we've had one for roughly every 6 months. Although I don't think that's going to continue necessarily. But we like to say like, you know, a major version stuff breaks, but we've really worked hard to make it like things have improved and small things have broken. But like we've had plenty of people who've like upgraded even from like 1 to 4 with like no problems. So there are breaking changes. We have like detailed guides in the docs, but don't be
Love
afraid just because we're like racing ahead with those version numbers, trying to catch up to next
it.
13. Maybe we'll be there by next year. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
like they're mostly pretty small majors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, now that everybody's on Vite, it should all be a piece of cake, right? So, all right. So let's create a Starlight website for the most part, and then as always, so we do about 90 minutes. You know, with kind of the chat in the beginning on Code with Coding Cat, and what we'll end up with is a GitHub repo. So if you want to grab that and keep running with it, feel free. So Chris is gonna walk me through all the parts and pieces as we get going here.
Yeah.
So is this the best spot for me to kind of follow along, or do you want to just tell me all the parts to do?
Yeah, I think this is perfect guide. Like this should be a
All right.
really quick start. Like that command there that you can just copy paste. I don't know if you have npm or pnpm or what you prefer to use, but
I
that should get
always
you going.
I should tell people, like, I always, so the P just adds, oh, it is slightly different. I was gonna say usually I always put a P and then paste the npm command and we're good to go type of thing.
It should work. I think that works too. Like you
Okay.
know, there's like a lot of they all have aliases, so they all kind of work the same. But
Oops, I am in the wrong folder. That might have been a mistake. I always have this remove folder. There we go. In case we get crazy. Oh, I love this, by the way. So let's make this a little bigger. So we had the Houston, if you didn't see it here when we popped up, but it kind of walks you, the Astro CLI walks you through so much cool stuff. It's amazing.
yep, it's
So
going to be
we're,
the same here. So just to like briefly explain the
yeah,
command you pasted, but that's the standard like scaffolding command for starting any Astro project. The only difference is we've added that template Starlight in there. So it's not gonna ask you any questions about which template you might want to use. We've kind of already told it that, but it'll ask you all the regular questions. So like where you want to create your project, those kinds of
cool.
things.
I love it. Can we just do dot? I guess we'll do. Sure.
I think so. If the directory is empty, it should work. If it's not, it might complain.
I think it's not, the more I think about it. So we'll roll with magenta meteor. I like that. I like, so it popped out the template here already. So that's good.
Yep.
Maybe still hard to see as it's this big. So there we go. We'll roll with this and see how long I can type for. Love TypeScript. Let's keep with that. What do you think? Strict. I always roll with strict.
Should be fine. I mean, up to you. Like Strictus is also fine. There's not a huge difference, honestly, between the two.
Let's go ahead and install, initialize. Ah, that's so cool. I don't know who's working on your CLI, but it's got to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people contributing. I mean, Nate Moore is like the person who built out the. We have a kind of a library backing this, and he's also has like a side project called Clack for building these kinds of interfaces. But yeah, a lot of love and attention. Like someone just the other day realized like you used to like pause between each of these steps. So you would say like copy the template, and it would like copy the template slowly, and then it would you know, dependencies install dependencies. Do you want to start a GitHub like and now we switched it so it like does it at the end. You know, you
Sure.
get through all your flow and then it runs it all. So like these little details that I wouldn't even have thought of that, but we have these people who notice that, and that's great.
I think Ellian's saying that Sarah's gonna give us hot take if we pressure her enough. So we'll see.
Astro 5 in.
Okay, so we have a site. Let me pop that open since I totally didn't do this right. Do that. Brittany's gonna kill me. She always tells me there's a command and code to just pop it open in the same window. I keep forgetting it.
All right. I don't think I knew that either.
So there's a nice little scaffolding that we have out here. Do you want to walk through kind of what it's given us with the
Sure.
template?
Yeah, so like the basics, if we're looking here, is a standard kind of Astro layout. We have this astro.config file, which kind of configures your general project. So maybe just quickly look at astro.config.
Oops.
Just in the root there. There we go. So here we can see like some
that
basic
look?
stuff. We can see Starlight is listed there as an integration. So Astro in general has a concept of integrations, which are like plugins that add specific functionalities. It's a way to like ship a specific like subset of functionality in a package that you can easily add to a project. So you could add React this way, or you could add, trying to think what other common things now, but yeah, there's a bunch of them,
That's so
and like third party ones, official ones, and Starlight is the same. It's just like it's just a standard integration, and it has its own custom config that we'll get to eventually. So you can see that listed there. But that's it. So
very
far,
cool.
that's the config.
Seems easy
Otherwise,
enough. I'm curious how many socials we can add. Maybe there's like 40 of them like I have on our site.
I don't let us know. Like, I wonder if we'll hit any where we don't support them, because we like those ones we have to support internally. But we'll see.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had to add Mastodon the other day. I was like, oh, and I think you were one of these people that like I asked for a Twitter link or whatever, or X now, and I think yours is Mastodon, right?
I do have a Mastodon account.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I
Yeah.
use.
So luckily I added that recently. Anyways, couple fun things just in the chat. Apparently Sarah wants to give us till 2025, so we all have to relax on the Astro 5 piece. Tom wants to know if I can switch over to the Houston VS Code theme.
Oh,
Maybe. We'll see how far we get first. I don't know
yeah.
how
Before we get
that
onto
will
the fun, it is beautiful. It's a beautiful dark theme designed by Nate, I think, actually on the team,
I'll have
and
to check that out.
comes with Houston, who's the little mascot we saw in the
Oh.
CLI, who like sits in the corner of VS Code, and if you have like problems with your code, he cries.
That reminds me of the old Clippy. If everyone's old enough to know Microsoft's Clippy.
Yeah, definitely a big inspiration.
Cool. So standard config it looks like. So we added the integration for Starlight. We have that piece in there.
And then we got a couple directories. We have public and source. Public is kind of like a static directory. This stuff just gets copied over to your site. Nothing happens to it. It doesn't get processed. Like if you just, like we got the favicon in there, but maybe if you had some images or like a press asset or something you don't want to get processed, you can stick stuff in there. But most of the stuff we're going to look at is in source.
Awesome.
And in content. And in, yeah, assets, we've got an image. And then in content, you'll see we have like this docs directory. And that's where all the content lives. So,
cool.
The starter template is just scaffolded as a few pages. So we have an index.mdx, which is our like homepage. Has a bunch of content kind of pre-filled in there just to give us an example. And we have guide and references as a couple of other examples.
And so just remind me, it's been a minute. When I do like Svelte, it's SvelteKit. It's always like directory based and then like plus pages. Is there anything with naming or anything like that people should consider when they're creating these?
It's just one-to-one. So like in this case, index is going to become your homepage, like the / route. And then you're going to have a route at guide/example, reference/example, in this case from these 3 files. So it's just, file-based routing. There's no special like syntax or anything. The name will end up, I think the names do get slugified internally. So if you had some really like wild characters in there, maybe they might, like, I don't know, if it was like a full of hashes or something, maybe those get converted to hyphens. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, basically, oh yeah, AstroDocs is heavily represented on Mastodon.
Oh, Houston. Nice. So what I have on screen here, if people aren't used to it and they're coming from like a CMS or something like that, in a MDX page or there's a .astro page as well, right? No?
Those exist, yeah. Starlight's a little bit different because it's really markdown and it's like content based, right? Like we need title metadata and all this other stuff to be able to render. So we can maybe look towards the end about how to use .astro pages with Starlight. It's totally possible. But like the main use case is like, oh, we're just going to stick with Markdown and MDX for now, or marked doc if you want to use marked doc. That's like the other alternative like content format.
Cool. So in a Markdown page, in a traditional one, whether it's this index or just this example, you'll see both of these have kind of these dashes. That's your front matter that exists out here. And then each one of these is just metadata that's kind of poured throughout it. Something that's special, which we should probably talk about, is kind of this piece here. What is that actually doing in a Markdown file? It's kind of weird, right?
Right. So this is MDX. You notice there is a slight difference between those files. We have like example.md, which is a regular Markdown file. And then we have this index.mdx, which is a format which builds on Markdown. Like, as you can see in that file, you have like this next steps header. It's still a regular, like in Markdown format. If for anyone who hasn't seen Markdown before, like that's a second level heading, like an H2 tag gets produced out of that like hash next steps. So that's regular Markdown syntax, but MDX extends that with the possibility to import a component like you would in React or like another language, and then use syntax to use those. So like in this case, we're importing some built-in components that Starlight provides and using them to build a little grid. It might maybe make sense to run the dev server and have a look at what this looks like.
pm run dev.
Yep.
I was told the other day I can just do this.
You can indeed, yeah. PM, you don't need the run.
Gosh, I love pm. I'm on the wrong window. Hang on 1 minute. Drag this over. There we go.
Yes.
So this
yeah,
is the
are.
site we're creating, right?
That's the site we just scaffolded out, and you can see we were just looking at that like next steps heading and the card grid, and we can see those like on this screen here.
Yep, beautiful. Man, it looks sharp already. Nice. I didn't look at the styling too much. Tailwind possibility or default?
There is a Tailwind possibility. We actually have a dedicated template for that even. If you know from like day one, I need a doc site, it needs to support Tailwind. We have a Tailwind template that we could have used to scaffold this out.
Very cool.
But we also have a guide in the docs for adding it if you need to. Yeah, so it's by default, it's all like vanilla CSS, mainly to try and be like one of the challenges I found, like similarly with the Astro thing of supporting all these frameworks is like, okay, so we support all the frameworks like React, Vue, Svelte. So what do we use to build this tool, which anyone could they might want to use Preact, they might want to use Svelte, or like, you know, and I don't want to make a decision already like, oh, you've got to include one of these. So like a lot of our decisions on Starlight is like, okay, we'll accept maybe building with the less powerful tools. So it's all web components in this case. It's just plain.
Wow.
I'm writing like super minimal JavaScript web components to keep things light, minimal. And like if you then choose to use React or Vue or Svelte, it doesn't feel weird that maybe like Starlight's already using one. So it's similarly with the CSS, I was like, oh, could be nice with Tailwind, but if we just use the simple stuff, then the people who want Tailwind, they get it. The people who don't have to.
Gotcha.
Like,
are you using anything like fancy to write the web components like Stencil.js or anything like that, or are you just kind of writing them all raw?
No, actually, this is kind of off topic for the stream, I guess, but Astro is really nice for web components. So like, this is kind of like a trend going on right now, like HTML web components that people have been talking about, where the idea is kind of instead of the shadow DOM, like mysterious web component that like springs to life and like, you know, inject stuff with JavaScript. Yep. Instead, you imagine like a web component is like, it has to have some HTML in it, and then you use a web component to wrap that HTML and like progressively enhance it. So you add some extra behavior that it wouldn't have without it. And so a lot of the patterns like that work really well in Astro because you already have like the component concept, right? You're going to grab a component, and then we just have a script tag in our Astro component and write a web component in there. And yeah, kind of superpower a bit of HTML, but you're already rendering all that HTML on the server. It's like, so you don't have to really do any of the complex templating stuff a lot of the time. And certainly for me, I really enjoy working that way. It's nice. I think it'd be less fun when I think the like shadow DOM world of web components is a little more painful. But these are kind of lightweight. It's basically like it's basically a document query selector, and then but it's a little bit nicer when it's a web component.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I wrote some stuff, and it took me back with Astro, just web components, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have to do this selector thing. I'm used to using like Svelte to do that and things like that. So there are some like trade-offs for sure, but like
totally
that's why a framework's there, right? So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. So I see a couple special things. Like we might be used to title description, but there's like talk about like templates and this hero thing. Like how do those get involved?
Yeah. So maybe can we switch quickly back to the preview or like the dev server preview in the browser? Yeah. So this is our like landing page. So we saw in the front matter it had like that template splash. But if you jump to the example guide, if you click the button there, This is kind of this is like the default. If we hadn't specified that, this is the default layout you get. So you have
Gotcha.
navbar on the left, table of contents. So that's the main difference. Like that template front matter is basically a toggle to switch between a layout, a kind of doc layout, when you've got a document, table of contents, and getting like your average page is probably going to use this. And then the splash one is primarily for a home page, although it could also be like maybe you have sections and like the landing page of each section has like a splash layout with some cards or something. Like you know, obviously you could do whatever you want, but it's considered like it's thought or intended to be used as a homepage, let's say.
And where do you tend to is someone creating this splash template over in here somewhere for a layout? Like, how do those get involved?
They're just they're built in.
They're just
it's like
built in.
something
Okay.
we've just built in. Yeah.
And can you extend them at all? So like, I don't want the front page to quite look like that. I want it like this. How do you go about those things?
Yeah, you can. So we have a couple different ways. I mean, the first way is just like throw some custom CSS in it, right? Like you can just write a CSS file, tell Starlight about it, and then we'll like load that in. I guess we could do that if that seems exciting.
I'll follow if I should follow the guide, like we can go next steps, wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, well, you want to customize the color scheme? Does that seem important yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's jump to the docs, the Starlight docs. And if you go to CSS and styling,
cool.
You scroll right down to the bottom. There's a little theme editor right down to like the bottom of that page.
All the way bottom. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's make this a little bigger. Cool.
So this little editor here, you can tweak and choose colors. I don't know. Purple seems to be a CodingCat color.
Yep. For sure. Awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
You can kind of get a lot involved here, huh?
Right, and you just get a preview like right live, like you can see the kind of preview your changes on that doc site. And then when you're ready, when you're happy with like some settings, you can just grab the CSS that's printed out there.
Cool. Grab that.
And now create a CSS file is somewhere in source. Doesn't really matter where. You could have like a source/styles and .css or however you fancy organizing it. Doesn't really matter.
Just main.css maybe.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Perfect. And now we're going to want to open our Astro config. And in the Starlight options,
let's see here. Starlight.
Yeah, we just add a new option or like a new property there called custom CSS. And it's going to be an array. And we're just going to pass it like the path to the file we just created. So I guess /source styles main CSS.
Probably a string, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. I think you should just save that, and the dev server should just restart automatically, and boom.
Oh, look at that.
There we go.
Love it.
It's purple.
You guys will have to tell me on stream if the purple's working for you or if we need to go back. I always forget the command. So if we do inspect, and then you can do dark, switch to dark theme, and then not switch, maybe not.
There's a theme switcher at the top right of the site.
Of course there is. Totally missing it. Thank you.
No worries.
So there's kind of the light mode, dark mode.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's like defaults to automatic, but then users still have the option to switch to their preference. Yeah.
Very neat. That's a really cool thing. I'm also kind of curious. I keep seeing the search bar. If we want to talk through that a little more.
Definitely. Yeah, search is obviously really important for docs, right? Like if you're in a docs, you often need to find something really specific that you've got stuck on or you want to work out how to do it. And so one of the things we really wanted to do was make sure that search was kind of out of the box. And it's using a really cool tool from Cloud Cannon. It's an open source tool called PageFind. Cloud Cannon's like an agency and development company, but PageFind is It's actually interesting. They produce a lot of tools along this lines which are really built to work with kind of any pipeline. Like often they'll work on like a folder of HTML output rather than being like something that has to wire into your build process or something. And it makes them quite flexible. So PageFind is particularly interesting because it is designed for low bandwidth use, like and without a server specifically. Like, right, if you think about search,
wow.
maybe you think about Algolia or like some other like thing where you have to like spin up a expensive database and search index and like a server to pipe back results to you and
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
totally.
And the alternative to that is often being like full text search, but you like have to download 20 megabytes of data to like get it to run on the client. And so Liam at Cloud kind of like done a really amazing job on PageFind. It basically I don't know how deep we want to go into the details, but it basically managed to shard a search index into like many pieces, but they're static. So they can be served just like a flat file server alongside your static site. And the client piece is clever enough to know how to like grab. It's like you type in, I don't know, a, and it's like, oh, I know, like I just need the first shard over here. I'll go grab that, and I can search in that little piece. So even if you have a lot of data, I think they have like demos of it with MDN and various other like pretty big sites.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and you know you're obviously going to download a little bit of data to do that search, but it's pretty lightweight, pretty snappy, and it works really well on a first static site. So yeah, that comes out of the box. We're going to have to, if you want to test that out on our example content, we'd have to build the site. Like the one requirement is like you only get search once you actually build the site. We can't
Yeah.
offer it like in dev where nothing, like everything's floating around in memory. But
I'm
yeah, if you
definitely
want to
curious like what those files look like. So let's do a build.
I think they're in like a binary, like compressed binary format. So I think they'll look like oh,
Wah.
interesting.
Config
Okay,
yes.
that's just a type check error. We can go to if you go to package.json,
Sure.
you'll see that when on the build script there, because we said we want a TypeScript, it's like, oh, you also want to check everything. You can just remove the Astro check. Like it's that type error. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but I'm pretty sure it's not correct. So pretty sure if we build, it should be good. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Here's the dist. It's always fun to look at this. So like people sometimes that are like writing Angular or something like that, they forget about like all these files that are still required when you're serving static. So it's cool to see like index.html and like all of these actual pages that are coming out of this. So here it looks like is the page find piece. Yeah,
Yes.
this is crazy. So index, that's probably the piece
There
right
you go.
there.
So
along
there's
with
like this
fragments.
binary format that it uses to compress all that data and make it lightweight.
Cool.
So not really anything you can do, I guess. I mean, they have like a WASM piece that runs on the browser to like parse it. There's a lot of clever stuff there. It's like it's in Rust. It like I don't know, even on big sites, it seems to be able to index all that local HTML like lightning. So really happy with that as a choice, and really happy that people get that out of the box because I know like a lot of Docs tools will integrate with other services, but often it's like, okay, I have to like sign up for an account somewhere,
Yep.
and then like add a plugin, and so it is really nice that that we can just be like, no, you just build your site and search works. We have a plugin for Algolia's doc search. So I know like some open source projects have access to that, and we have a plugin to allow you to toggle that out if you need it.
Cool.
But yeah, out of the box, it uses PageFind.
PageFind, does it do as much like contextual stuff as Algolia still? Where like
There's some limitations, right? Like
Okay.
you don't have because you don't have a smart like server kind of
Right.
parsing your query. Like it all has to be static. Yeah, it's a little bit little more limited. And
Sure.
like I don't know, something we've done on the Astro docs with Algolia is like, oh, people keep searching for this word but we use this other one. Like we'll just put in a synonym. Like you can't really do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Although there might be ways for them to do it. I'd be curious to see how they solve it. But yeah, there's limits. But for most use cases, I think it works pretty well.
So just to break down a few more, just out of this build folder too, if we look at, again, we had index page, but then we have reference example, guides example. So when we take a look up here, we have reference example. Here's your index HTML that comes out. Looks like there's a decent amount going on in here still. So just to show like under the hood, it's really nice to like write your markdown and it's really easy. But when you have all of these updates and things that are still required, scripts and things like that, that's what the great part about static generation does and what Astro does. So I'm gonna try to do this. There we go. Make it look
Oh, there you go. See
a
the whole structure.
little better. I know people won't be able to see this, but just to shrink it down and show it a little more, just all the metadata and stuff that comes out of it.
Right, like we take care of like the SEO tags, canonical URLs and things like that. I mean, I guess we probably haven't yet because we haven't told it where we're deploying our site. But like, if we tell it like the site URL, we'd be able to add canonicals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Generate a sitemap and all the kinds of little things that you have to wire up, right?
Yeah.
Like they're needed, but they're kind of annoying. So I think it's nice that they come out, ready to go.
Cool. Yeah, I love it. What do you think we should go through next?
Maybe we should show off a little bit of our like code documentation tools, because obviously like one of the main audiences of this kind of product is technical documentation. And we have this really cool engine built in called Expressive Code. What's a good, if you jump to the markdown, oh yeah, you'll find it that way, I think. Nice. So here we get a few examples. Basically, it's a kind of code annotation tool. I mean, most people are probably familiar, like you can write a markdown code block with these little 3 backticks, and then you can tell, you can like specify a language, so like JavaScript or Markdown or C++ or whatever it is you're writing in, and get syntax highlighted code like you would in editor. But we have a community member, Hippo, who started contributing to Astro's docs and like realized we had these other use cases like, hey, when you're writing documentation, you might want to highlight specific details. You might want to have like a word or a line highlighted. So that's what we're seeing here. And so kind of extended that default markdown syntax for us in a way that means you can kind of draw attention to things. So here we have kind of the lower example here is the syntax that is producing the example above. So here you can see like this 2 to 3 span is giving us a highlight of like lines 2 and 3 are highlighted. In the next example, it's like you can use a string or even a regular expression to highlight just kind of portions of a text.
Wow, that's amazing to be able to do that.
Yeah, super, super handy. To like, especially when in longer code samples to draw attention to things. And similarly here, like this is like, we have these inserted and deleted variations as well. So you can kind of say like, oh, this you need to delete this code or something. Like we can show that in red. And similar, the last example is the same kind of thing. One of the weird drawbacks of like most of these code syntax highlighting tools is that the diff, you can like specify the language as diff and use like minus and pluses at the start of a line to show code diffs, but they usually don't have any syntax highlighting. So like for the language you're using, it just shows you the red and green, let's say. In this case, you can add a lang equals and specify an additional language, and then you get the fully syntax highlighted code plus the diff green and red like line deletions and stuff as well. So
it's really cool.
We use that a lot in our upgrade guides when it's like, hey, we changed something, like you need to delete this one line, change it to this. Like really nice that we can show those off in that way. And the next piece, this is like, we realized, I think this is something we kind of done progressively as we worked on Astro's docs, is how important and how useful it is to know what file you're in a code snippet. It's pretty common to just like see a code snippet without a file name.
Totally.
So
we talk about this at work all the time, and it's like, do we textually say you're looking at XYZ file or just put it like in the code snippet? I prefer it this way, but like there's a lot of different opinions on that too.
Yeah, I mean, both depends probably a little bit on the context, right? But this makes it really easy to add it as like a visually separate part of your, like here you can see this my test file.js. It's not just a code comment that you might overlook or something. It's very visible, kind of has that visual metaphor of the editor tab or whatever, so you kind of understand that's what it is. And then same for terminal, like the terminal window helps show you that like, oh yeah, this is a command I type in my terminal and not like a file somewhere or something.
That's really cool.
With the optional title on there as well to help describe it. Yeah, so those are some of the cool features. There's new ones all the time. If you go to, I think it's expressive-code.com, there's a link somewhere in there.
I think
Maybe
there
at the top of that
was
section.
something at the top.
Oh, I guess we jumped into the middle of the
Yeah, let
page.
me reload, see if it.
No.
No.
If you, there you go.
Yeah, I think it was this.
That one, yeah. Oh, that's the, okay, we only have, I need to update that. They have a website now. I think when I wrote these docs, the website wasn't ready yet.
Maybe this links out to it. There we go.
Yes, nice. Which is, their docs, of course, are built with Starlight.
It's all in the family. This is perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they have a bunch of cool stuff. Hippo's just worked on a labeling tool, so you can kind of like label specific lines with like a number or a letter or something, so that you could say, kept over.
I don't know what
We know
this
the next
means.
feature about the job.
But
Oh, I probably should know, but now on air I'm blanking.
I think Sarah's gonna give us a hot take. It's probably out in
we're gonna get a hint, Sarah. Yeah, so there's cool things. Like definitely check it. It's a super active project, really in development. And actually, if you're interested in expressive code, it doesn't just work in any Astro site. It works in like any site where like remark is being used for the markdown. So like you can use it with Next.js or something like that as well.
That's really great
so
to know.
It's not Astro exclusive.
I'm using it in SvelteKit right now, so it'd be kind of cool to have more of that. I think I can't even remember what code block syntax I'm using right now, but it'd be cool to kind of dive into this further. Something that we're using at work, and I'd have to go look up the package name of it, but we're actually taking and using external like GitHub repos. So we have a lot of our SDKs or example repos that are out there. We can actually just put a link to those repos and it brings the code block in that we want. So that's been huge for us because we can just put that tiny little snippet of go fetch this, and on build it actually goes out and grabs the content that we need.
Yeah, do you want to do that now in Starlight?
Oh, sure. I mean, if you want, that'd be amazing. Apparently the line numbers were the hot take.
Line numbers. Yeah, I was thinking of the labels. There's like a labeling feature where you can select in a code snippet, say like, I don't know, A, so that in your text you could say like, see line A or whatever. But yeah, line numbers, like just the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like along the side. That's, I believe, coming soon, or maybe has even landed. I lost track.
Very cool.
Yeah, if you want to do like a dynamic code snippet, that's totally possible.
Yeah, let's
and maybe it's a good way to show off like some of those MDX things, and we can do it in a .astro component maybe, and like show off that and like pull it into one of our MDX files.
I'll take your lead.
Okay, let's create a components file in source folder. Sorry.
Sure.
And I guess we'll call this remote code.astro, something like that. Nice. So this is an Astro component. We mentioned them briefly, I think, earlier on. Actually looks surprisingly similar to our MDX or Markdown, because we have the same concept of like this front matter with like 3 dashes up top, which allows us to write server code or like logic that we want to run at build time. And then the part below that is our kind of component content, like the template or whatever. Exactly. So I guess I don't know where we're going to fetch some code from. That's the only thing.
We need to do it from your docs somewhere. Let's do that.
Okay, sure.
Will that be okay?
Yeah, of course.
Let's see. You probably have a edit this, but yep, here we go. So let's fetch something out of your guide. How about just
a long code sample, but let's do it.
Yeah, that's true. Do you want to? Will this work? Do you think this is okay?
I think it should work. It's just going to be. It'll just be a lot of code.
Cool.
So try it.
Dude, should I grab that whole thing?
Do we need like the role? Maybe you need the role link in GitHub to get this, like the plain text version of this.
Yes, you're right. There we go.
Yeah, that's probably what we want.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so let's like await fetch that up top. I guess we want it in a variable, but
it's crazy big. Oops, forgot the
string.
There we go.
Yeah. So that's our request or like our response, I guess, and then we need to.
String. Yeah, let's see. We probably have a edit this, but yep, here we go. So let's fetch something out of your guide. How about just
String.
trimming?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is just like regular JavaScript, standard stuff. So I guess we await response.text.
Oh, text. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I haven't done text in a while.
Yeah, no, it's almost always JSON, right?
Yeah, exactly. So is it just that then?
Yeah, maybe let's start with that, and we'll just see what happens.
Okay.
And then we'll like get it working. It's not going to work perfectly, but something will happen. So
Okay.
okay, so we have our component. It fetches data and like plumps it there, and we want to add it to one of our pages. So,
Oops.
oh,
I forgot we didn't run the dev server yet.
Oh, right, we built before, yeah. Okay,
And
so
yeah, where do you think
choose
you
a
wanna
page
just
you want to
create
put
a
this
new-
on? Maybe you want to. Oh, we can create a new page. Why not? Like that's also
Okay.
fun.
Top level on content or
Doesn't it needs to be in the docs folder.
okay, docs folder.
Trying to remember how this is set up. Maybe stick it in the reference just for now.
Okay.
I'll explain why in a minute, but
How about remote MD?
Yeah,
Or
sounds good.
MDX?
MDX, good point. Yeah, we need an MDX for this case because we want to use a component. And actually, just look at the terminal quickly. It's going to give us a helpful error.
Ooh, okay.
So docs reference remote.mdx does not match collection schema title required.
That's so handy. So I run into this all the time doing our like previews. Usually when I book a guest, I don't know if I sent this to you because we're a little short notice, but I usually send out, here's the preview of your page that'll come out in CodingCat, blah, blah, blah. So I'm always forgetting to like update that after we get done with the show with our YouTube link or something like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So this is this is a standard Astro feature, but Starlight really benefits from it. That we can this is the only one you'd hit. Like the only property that's required there is title. But
Nice.
yeah, you get this helpful example. And if we'd looked at the browser, that would have popped up in the browser too.
That's awesome.
Sweet. So we have our page, and we want to import our component.
I was just there's a question out here I wanted to address before we got too far. Good idea to start the component file name with uppercase letter.
It does not matter. So up to you. I think we might need to, when we name our import, like in the code, like when we import, we may want to make sure that is an uppercase. I'm not 100% sure on that.
I will say, when I'm usually writing components, I usually will put the component name like that.
Right.
Oh, interesting. I don't know why I just did that. That was
Still
weird.
there though, right? That's usually like how if it's deleted, but it's not deleted.
That's weird, and I don't know why it's showing up in there. Huh. I don't know what's going on, but let's see if this will work now. I'm kind of.
If it doesn't work, we'll blame Hippo.
Yeah. So import below down here, or
yeah, exactly. So in MDX, you import inline. Oh, nice, you get that inline. I don't have that fancy inline arrow. That's cool. So we call this whatever. You could call this import remote or remote code or whatever from. And now we need to go up.
$$ or aliases at all, or no?
We could set one up. We don't have like one. Okay. We're unopinionated about it from the get-go, but there we go.
Cool.
I think you need the .astro. Yeah, okay. I think so. Okay, so nothing broke importing it, and now we should be able to just render it with a tag. Oh no, like a component tag, like with the angle brackets.
Remote code / like that. Cool.
Perfect. Did it work?
Let's see. This is going to be at reference. No, where do we put this?
If you jump into the docs, it should show up in the sidebar.
Oh, right. That's right.
That's the reference section is. Oh, look at that. It's working, kind of.
Yahtzee. So now we just need to be able to take this, reparse it, and put out the content, right?
Yeah, but it should be pretty easy. So if you do we want to look at the docs for it, or do you just want to try and do it?
Totally up to you.
I think we can do it.
Okay.
Hopefully I remember the import. It should be pretty simple. So if we go back to our remote code component, we're going to want to import a component into this one. So we're going to import, I guess, up
Mm.
top in the front matter.
That's kind of confusing. Like an Astro file, you do it in the front matter in MDX. You don't like.
Yeah, that's true.
It's interesting. Definitely
MDX is a weird
okay.
format, I have to say. I mean, it's super powerful, but it is a kind of weird thing where it's like, oh, I'm writing Markdown, but I can also just import
Right.
JavaScript in here, and I can await a fetch in my content. It's kind of wild,
Yeah,
but
it's wild for sure.
okay, so the module is going to be at Astro.js / Starlight / components / code. Oh no, that's it. Sorry, no slash. That's it. Just / components, and then you're going to want to grab the code component. There we go.
Cool.
There you go. And now, yeah, we're going to render the component. So again, like angle brackets for that. Yeah. And then I think it has a code prop. And that's going to be with curly braces because it's a variable, our content. Okay, save
Cross our
that and let's
fingers.
see what happens. Yeah. Does it need to reload? Oh. Huh.
I think we have to parse, don't we? Oh, we're just showing this as code though, right? So
yeah, it should show up. I wonder if that
did we get? Oops.
Oh, wait, look in your sidebar. The remote code there is lowercase again?
Interesting.
Something weird is happening. I don't know what that is, but
yeah, so hang on, let me do a refresh. Oh my gosh, developer reload. Let's try that.
okay, so somehow we're editing an uppercase one that is like not the real one. Oh.
Yeah, that's totally weird.
Oh, weird. Okay, let's try using the lowercase import yeah, in there and see if that helps us at all. Super weird though.
That is totally weird.
Okay, yes, but it's working. That's I don't know what, I guess that rename.
Someone was trying to trick us, I think, in the comments. Yeah. don't trick us. Live coding's hard enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so it's it looks already much better, right? Like we have a code block. And the only thing that I guess a couple things here. So we could now tell the code component that this is markdown. So we might want to like get some syntax highlighting. So go in here, say like
language.
Perfect. MD.
Cool.
Boom. Syntax highlighted. And yeah, now it even supports all those other features we were looking at, like highlighting lines and stuff. So we could say like, go highlight line 3 or something if we wanted. Is that, I have to now remember how to do that. It might be like a mark. I have a feeling like it might be mark. Otherwise, we'd have to go look at the docs. Oh, smart. Yes, IntelliSense for the
meta.
Mark.
Yeah, I think it is mark. Is there a type? No, not really. It's just a number.
Not really. It can be a number if it's a specific line. It can be like a range. So we could put like 3 in here. It would highlight line 3. There we go. Or we could like add like 3 hyphen. I guess that would have to be a string then, but yeah, 3 hyphen something. Yeah. Oh, that broke.
Maybe that. Yeah, I don't know on that one. Let's go see if I probably should have left our normal docs up here. Do you have code components?
Yeah, we have it on the components page.
Well, it's here nor there. That's how you use it, guys.
Yeah. Anyway, we managed to fetch a snippet from GitHub, plop it in, and like obviously this was a kind of simple example. We could easily make it where like the URL gets passed in as a prop. So like you'd have a remote code component that just would like go fetch whichever code you tell it to, and like automatically maybe detect the format from the file extension or something, and you could build that pretty quickly, I think.
Cool. I don't know why, but your video froze.
Yeah, things are frozen for me too. I don't.
Oh, inside the curly.
I can hear you though. Like stream seems to be like I don't see any movement, but I can hear you fine.
Let's fix this. Perfect. Thank you, Hippo. Let's see. Did you come back? No?
Still seems to be frozen on my end, but
Oh, lost Chris completely.
oh wait, you can't even hear me now?
Chris, oh, I can hear you. Do you want to just try jumping out of StreamYard and come back in?
Let's do it. Yeah, sure.
Sweet. So while he's doing that, I will just bring up Astro as well, since Astro is kind of an important piece of this. If you haven't checked out Astro, this is kind of the main page as well that you can get to. And the getting started is great in here too, but it's a really cool way to make, especially static content. They're definitely there's a lot more dynamic now too, so you can add different pieces to it. Oh, interesting. I forgot. I think this is now in Astro. I don't remember. I don't want to say that, but yeah, definitely cool. Let's see here. I don't know what the loading does. Hippo, you can also highlight terms. Oh, I love this. Great. Let's see if I can do that. Go back. So you can do ins. Oh, ins equals Starlight. I think we also saw that you can do regex too, which is pretty sweet. So I don't know if that term's in here. So let's do create. Chris is
Hello,
back.
hello.
Back
Yeah, I
in
had to
action.
actually like force quit Chrome and everything.
Oh wow. Sorry. Let's see. We were just kind of I showed off the main Astro site, just letting people know. I didn't
Oh,
realize
nice. Yeah,
maybe this is true, but maybe not. Firebase blog is built in Astro now.
it is. I think it's been a little while. Yeah,
Yeah,
David East, who works at Firebase, is a really big Astro fan, and
nice.
another like big Google initiative, IDX, which is their like cloud IDE thing they're working on. They have like the whole beautiful landing page built in Astro as well. Very cool to see people like doing that. Like, you know.
I was totally messing up this great example that I was given. So let's see. There we go. So you can do highlights and create, and I think we talked about like regex too. Let's
Right.
see. You can add Starlight to an existing Astro site. Very cool. That's great to
Yep.
know. How about an existing SvelteKit site? Just kidding. I'm sure we could make it load, honestly, but cool. What else do we want to show off on this coding example so people have a decent start of this? Any other fun little
Yeah.
nuggets out here?
I guess,
Ooh,
I mean, we could talk about
internationalization is
internationalization.
cool. Yeah, that's a
Um,
great one.
I think this is also something we do. Well, I don't want to say it seems a bit like boastful to say like I think we do well, but we have a lot of experience of, I will say, because Astros Docs has just invested a huge amount and has such a big community around its translations. So obviously this had to also support that. So Starlight comes out of the box with like UI translations. So for all the like labeling, like you see like the auto light dark for the theme
Oh,
picker, or
yep.
like the on this page table of contents stuff, like all these kinds of things. Search, you know, all these things that need labeling. That's kind of provided out of the box in a bunch of languages, more languages actually than we are translated in for our docs. So docs are in like 12 or something. And I think I've lost track. We're like 24 languages or something currently for like the UI
That's
stuff.
amazing.
And always open to PRs. It's if you want to get involved, like it's not like a huge PR, right? You got to translate, I don't know, 24 terms or something. And always happy to add new languages. So those come out of the box, and we also have like good setup for getting that started. So I don't know, do you want to add another language to your doc site?
Sure. There's also a suggestion for you could add a
Oh, yeah.
title. I don't know.
You could add a
Are we
title.
missing a
Oh,
title?
to the code snippet.
Oh, to the
Okay, maybe
code snippet.
before we move on.
Yeah,
Sure.
sure. I don't recall. Is that here? Title?
Yeah.
Yes.
Title.
How about remote code snippet? Something like that.
Yeah. There it is.
There you go. Cool.
Right.
Love it.
And if you were automating that, that could be like you could automatically grab the file name from your request or something and put that as the title. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. It's during our build that we actually use it, so it's not something like we fetch or anything. Well, I mean somebody's fetching it, but it's done automatically. So I'll look it up before we jump off.
Nice.
Cool. So yeah, I think I could just copy this. It looks like because we really haven't changed much, right?
You can.
Probably.
Oh, I don't know if you want to copy the whole thing because that's
no.
going to copy like all of like the whole config file. I guess we wanted to grab just that highlighted piece.
Okay, we'll do that. This is so large now. Okay, so we have social blah 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 probably below here. I'm guessing. So used to
Looks right. I think, yeah,
taking
looks like
over.
the right place.
And so does this actually?
Yeah, maybe walk through this real quick.
Oh, sure. Sorry. Let me go back.
Just as like, yeah, we're setting English as our default language. Oh, we might want to make one change because right now all of our files are in the root like of the site where we don't have like any /en or anything. That's fine if you want to keep that. We can do that, but we'll need to tweak the ITN config here.
Okay.
Or we can move them into an en directory. Up to you, like whichever format you prefer.
Yeah. So I would probably leave the English just because I think a lot of people start out that way and then add later. So I would probably leave it this way. So can we just update so that like the Chinese version is in another directory?
Exactly. So all we need to change in the config, I think, hopefully I don't get this wrong, is where it says like en, like that object with label English. If we change that to, instead of en, we put a root, like ROOT, as the key. And I think delete the default locale config.
Okay. Just do that for now.
Yeah. Because it'll automatically assume you want the root locale to be the default. I think we could also put root in there if I remember correctly, but it's not strictly speaking needed. And I think that should work. It should be like, okay, you have like English in the root, and then we'll look for these other folders for other languages.
Okay. Does that automatically create a dropdown for language or no?
It should reload. Yeah, it should do.
Any issues?
I wonder if the dev server. No, it should do it by itself.
Something's blowing up.
Maybe did we get something wrong here?
Locales.root.lang? Does it need to be?
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, because it's a root language, we need to tell it the language.
So then we do this, maybe?
So like yeah, exactly. Lang, it needs to be the Lang, exactly like the Chinese example.
Oh, sorry, gotcha. So is it?
Yeah,
do
exactly like that.
Do I take the en? Do I leave the en and then like that? Or do I take this block out?
You're right, but remove the extra wrapping, exactly.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't know why that's not formatting well, but whatever. Cool. Let's run that again.
Okay.
Refresh.
Nice. Now we have the drop down.
Oh yeah, cool. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know why the character is on there. Oh, I probably didn't delete something. No? It's got like a extra Chinese symbol beside it.
Oh, it's like the translation icon.
Oh, is that what that is? Like I'm sorry.
Yeah,
like the language should have known that. I guess that's
interesting though. That's good feedback.
I don't know.
Yeah, same as like the theme picker on the left. It has like an icon, but yeah,
that totally makes sense.
Know that it's not clear.
I18 is on fire.
So now you can switch between. Yeah, Atharva is actually someone who's contributed to our translations into Hindi of the Astro docs and Starlight docs actually. So
nice. Good work. Thanks for the help. Yeah.
Okay, so we basically, that's like we have our our internationalized site ready to go. If you switch between languages, you'll see the the pages are already there. Like if you in the example on the dev server, in the browser, you'll see like we can switch already to like Chinese, for example, and it'll show us a page. It like automatically uses the default language as a as fallback content, basically.
Yep.
Because our default's English, we can't necessarily read the notice there, but basically it's saying like this content's not available in your language yet, just as a little notice. So it's not totally weird to someone that they're, hey, I thought I chose Chinese. Why is it all in English?
Sure.
But this is a pattern we used in the Astro docs a lot because, especially for open source, you probably don't have the resources to go ahead and translate all your docs like day one. Like you might have like someone in-house who like speaks a language, and like has translated a couple pages, but you probably aren't able to translate everything, especially like as stuff updates. So
100%.
we found this is the model that works really well. Like you add a new page, it's fine. You add it in English maybe, or like whatever your primary language is, and then like people as they have time can translate that. And in the meantime, the site still works. It's not just full of broken links.
That's a great way to look at it. I'll bring that back to work as well as something that we can look into, because I think we're looking to move to 4.0 or 4 something soon. So when you do this, if I say I wanted to update example reference in Chinese, would I create a new directory then?
Yeah, in the docs folder.
Okay. Docs. Yep.
Yeah, docs. We create our ZHCN. I think lowercase because that's the key there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
ZH. So it doesn't match.
So
I'm sorry.
no, it should match the key rather than the language. There's a few little with IETN. There's a lot of these tricky things. Like
I was just totally looking at the wrong spot. And so do we directly like just copy like this entire reference folder to start? Is that okay?
Yeah, that works.
Cool.
If we copy the reference, it's going to have that relative path to our component that we imported, which is going to be wrong because we're like that's where aliases and stuff could come in handy, where we could set one of those up. But
I think that will work.
Yeah, so the warning went away. Obviously, the content's still not translated.
So if we do, I think I'm on this one, right? Example reference. Yeah. So
yeah.
So this could actually change to something like that, and then it shows up.
Perfect.
Cool.
Exactly.
It's really neat. That must be difficult in a doc site. I haven't done a lot of internationalization that I have to keep up with. Like every time you introduce something, are you guys running like a GitHub action or something like that to say, oh, we don't have these 7 other languages now? Is it a warning for you guys? How do you handle that?
Yeah, we actually have a whole, hey, you want to see another site built with Starlight?
Sure.
I think it's, wait, let me make sure I get the URL correct. Yeah, I'll copy paste this over in StreamYard. This is a tool called Lunaria, which is also like, it's a bit like the expressive code that we showed off, a bit like Starlight. It's another thing that sprung out of our, oh, and it pretty much matches your the color scheme you picked.
That's what I was just gonna say. Purple. Like I feel like it's even my browser is purple. Everything is purple, just like I like it. That's awesome.
Lunaria, like we a while back had like some custom scripts in our Astro Docs repo for sort of managing those kinds of things. And this it's still early days project in some ways, Lunaria. Like it's kind of adapting those to be more widely usable, but starting to get picked up. Like I think we just saw that VeetPress, I think, like or VeetPress, or one of those is using this now for their docs translations. I think they have docs in English and Chinese, and basically what this does is uses your Git data to like produce a kind of map of your content, what's up to date, what's not. I can if you go to IETN, I don't think there's an example of what this looks like on here. So if you go to IETN.starlight, yeah, just stick IETN dot in front of that maybe. IETN.starlight.astro. Oh yeah, maybe you find it. Oh, that's just that.
Nope.
No, we want like IETN.starlight.astro.build, so you might have to type it. I don't know if we even index that because it's kind of like internal, but .starlight.astro.build. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so this is what it looks like.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So it generates this dashboard, gives you like translation progress. So here we can see
Sorry,
like Starlight docs are
Lunaria
completely translated.
Lunaria is doing this. Is that like giving you this output?
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
we run it like every time we deploy the doc site, like when we merge a PR or whatever, we redeploy this dashboard. So we can see like what the update status is. Contributors can like come and find pages to translate. Like they can see like, oh, this page needs updating. You get an overview of all your content. We have a version of this for the Astro doc site as well, which looks even crazier because we have like, I don't know, like 100 pages or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of content to stay on top of. And amazingly, we still have like, open source contributors translating all of that. Like we have languages where like the full, like hundreds of pages are translated. So
That's amazing.
this is available as well for people who need that kind of thing. And I think it's gonna have that's not ready yet, but there's gonna be like a GitHub action, like you asked, that will like comment on a PR and be like, hey, by the way, this PR like will make these languages out of date, or like updates these files, and that kind of stuff.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
that.
super cool to see this becoming more widely available.
I have so many things to bring back to work. It's kind of amazing.
Oh, great. That's really great to hear.
I think so. We have, I don't know, about 20, 18, 19 minutes left. The only other thing I'd love to do is, and this is maybe more of an Astro thing than a Starlight thing. So if you don't have anything else, let me ask that first. Is there anything you're dying to show off?
Are you going to suggest a component?
Yeah, I
bring in
am.
a svelte?
Yep.
Yeah, let's do it.
Not even Svelte
Yeah.
necessarily, just even like a web component. Any type of like component would be really cool.
Yeah. Well, let's do Svelte just because we kind of have built a component already. Like we built an Astro component to do our remote code fetching. That all happens at build time, right? Like the fetch happens, it's like once efficiently, and then like you're just serving that static content later. So we've kind of shown that off.
Sure. Sure.
And I think it could be cool to show like Svelte if that's what you prefer.
Yeah.
I like don't really have a preference, so yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Sounds good. Do you want me to bring up the docs or just kind of go for it?
I can probably guide you, I think.
Awesome. I love that answer. So I assume we're going to pnpm install Svelte to get started, or no?
Almost, but we have like a more helpful little tool we can use.
Oh, I like
so
it.
if you run, yeah, nice. If you run pnpm astro add, exactly, and then svelte. There you go. So it's going to ask you like, do you want to install Svelte? And the answer is, yep.
Oh, interesting. They Svelte, is it doing? Oh, it's Astro's 5, but Svelte's 4.2.
Right. So the Astro one is like the Astro like in between glue or whatever that we need, and then Svelte itself is getting installed. And now it's asking if you want to add a config file for Svelte, which
so it looks like it updated the import for Svelte and just dropped it in.
Cool. So it's going to add that to our Astro config file, and so that's set up Svelte to be like used so that your Astro project would understand like .svelte files and stuff like that.
Cool. Love it.
And now you should be able to create a Svelte component. You're gonna have to drive that a little bit more than me because it's been a while since I like made a Svelte component, but it should work like any Svelte component anywhere.
So let's do an easy one. So I can put it in components, correct?
Yeah, you can put it anywhere. Like we created that folder because it's kind of a nice way to keep things organized, but there's no real rules.
We'll do a high button .svelte. See how this goes. So Svelte, you can do script and then lang equals ts if you want TypeScript or not. Just depends. We can do something like just do whatever. This equals hello, and then we'll create a new button, and that button's text will have hello. It's kind of silly. Maybe we should do text. A little less confusing there. And this is completely incorrect because I'm used to using a component. There's kind of a Svelte component of hello, and then we can do some on-click actions to make it actually useful. So we can do on-click, And then we can do something like const click handler of some sort. And just drop this into the click. And what we'll do is update text. Something like that, maybe.
Nice. You need a
little
right?
closer.
Yep.
Oops, equals. There we go. All right, that theoretically should work. And then we can put that inside of, I don't know, the index file for now. Is that good enough, maybe?
Sure, yeah, it doesn't really matter where, that works.
So another import. Again, remember we're in an MDX file, so we're not in the front matter like we were Astro. We'll jump down here to import. I was just complaining about this on stream yesterday that we should have always done our modules first. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, the MDX is kind of weird because you can kind of like import anywhere in them, right? Like you could have that import halfway down the page, but then if you need the component like higher up the page somewhere, I think that actually still works because I think MDX kind of reorders everything probably at some point during the build, but like kind of weird.
Same. Yep. Gotta make this actually look like something else. All right. So let's
Nice.
see. Did I blow anything up? It looks like it's
Not
okay.
yet.
And get into our doc site. Next steps.
So, okay, we got a button.
So we have a button.
So this is our classic Astro like example, right? Like you've created an interactive component and it's not interactive, right?
Correct. So when I click,
Correct.
it doesn't interact. Yep.
Yeah. So one of like Astro's kind of superpowers, but also maybe can trip you up, is that it can take any of these framework components, so like React or Vue or Svelte, and then render them out to plain HTML and no JS whatsoever. Like if that's what you need, right? Like sometimes you might have a really nice React component that you found that like lays out your design and like has the right styles and looks great, but doesn't have any interactivity whatsoever. And so you don't need that to be shipped to the client. You don't need the client to be able to re-render that component at all. And so like that's the default behavior. No JS, no interactivity, just the component markup and styles.
Yep.
So we're going to want to like stick a little directive on the button, which is client : and then we can pick a few things here. Let's just use load for now, client load. So basically this is telling Astro like when do you want the code for this to load? And we have a few with like client visible, for example. So maybe you have a component in your footer and you're like, hey, don't bother loading that JS until someone scrolls down and actually needs it. And client load's the kind of basic one, like page loads, load the JS right away.
All right. So now we reload. There's your hello world. Perfect. I should have done something fancier, but there's hello at the beginning, and then I click, and it goes to hello world. The great part about that, I think, in my opinion, is that you're keeping like your bundle sizes small and stuff like that. So, okay, so a little bit of wrap up here. Is there anything else that we might have missed that we should show off?
I'm trying to think. So obviously, like we've kind of looked at some of the technical details. We haven't really looked at like the authoring experience so much, which is maybe kind of important for docs. Maybe we could take a quick look at the components docs page in Starlight, just to look at some of the stuff that's built in.
I like that. I think Chris and I might have a little lag, so bear with us here. Chris, if you can hear me, do you want to jump out and back in again? I think we're out of sync a little bit. I think once Chris comes back, we'll walk through that a little more. I'm kind of curious some of the comments here. Oh, very cool. Both have the same story. Devs devs asked us how they could use them in their own projects. That's awesome. Sarah says, so many projects came out of Astro Docs because people wanted what we'd custom built, expressive code, Linaria, Kevin's GitHub co-author. Wow, yeah, that's amazing to see like such community support surrounding Astro. It's always been a huge part of it. Same thought. Starlight blog. Oh, interesting. So we can't forget the
Okay.
Starlight blog.
Oh yeah.
Let's see.
So I don't know if did you hear me when I talked about components?
No, I didn't. I don't know that anybody
Okay.
did. So
Cool.
I jumped to the components page, and that's kind of where we left off.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I just wanted to like quickly run down some of like the built-in stuff we have here. These are things that are kind of common, basically, like common components you're going to need for a doc site, right? So we have like a tabs component that allows you to show, for example, like code snippets in multiple languages if you have like, or we've kind of seen them in action already with like the pnpm, npm, yarn, like install instructions where you want to show a bunch of them. I always say like my rule of thumb is like tabs are for equivalent content, not for lots of content that you want to hide. Like sometimes people are like, oh, but you could have like 2 files, and like it's like, well, if someone might want to look at both of those files and they're in tabs, you kind of, that's kind of annoying for them. So it's for content that like someone only needs one of. That's my rule of thumb. Then we have cards for which we've kind of seen on the landing page. So like for calling attention to like a grid of features or something like that. There you go. You can add an icon. The homepage has this stagger effect on the grid, so like they're kind of asymmetrical as well.
Oh yes, that's true.
Kind
of the.
There you go. We have link cards. So again, want to show off like a link to. We use these sometimes in the docs and the Astro docs for like, hey, you like get to the end of a section, but you want to like share some related content, like, hey, what should I look? What should I read next? And like link out to a few other pages. So those are handy. And we've already seen the code, and the icon is also just like, it's an icon component. It's not super powerful compared to maybe many. It's kind of limited in the number of icons we have. Oh, you wanted to add, this is reminding me, you wanted to add like all your social media links, right?
Oh yeah, we might be up on time though, so let's just go through. Cool. I think we talked quite a bit about the code piece too. So
yes, definitely we did. So yeah, the icon components are also used in the social media links if you wanted to add those in your config.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We have 8 minutes. Let's see if we can knock that out. So
yeah, it should be easy and simple. It's designed to be that way. So like hopefully it works.
So can we go into config and do like Mastodon? Is that?
Yeah.
Nice. What is Chris's Mastodon? He sent it to me. Should I look it up?
Yeah, I guess you don't have Mastodon. Come on.
I do. I have to have them all, right? Otherwise, I can't talk with everybody. I had yours like right here. Where did it go, Chris? It's on our page that was built for this episode. There we go.
Oh yeah.
So we can put in that. Oops. I got all sorts of weird. All right. So this should show up down at the bottom. Is that right?
Top in the navbar there.
Right here. There we go. So now we have the cool Mastodon boop. And so you're actually using those built-in links, or sorry, built-in icon components when using those, correct?
Exactly. So if you look at the grid, there's like a grid there of different services that we have, like stuff there.
Nice.
So you could add we have Twitter and X, just in case anyone needs the OG logo.
It still drives me crazy. Such a great branding that they've destroyed.
It's crazy.
Yeah, sorry, the Starlight blog, before I forget, let's share that up.
Yeah. So if you jump to in the sidebar of the docs, there's a section called resources, and then like plugins and integrations. So this is linked to mostly community plugins. we have like TypeDoc support, for example, like for the people who want to
nice.
like generate from your TypeScript code base, want to generate pages.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's built by actually most of these are built by one really amazing contributor, Hideo. And the blog piece as well is the same contributor who built that out. So basically the idea is like, hey, you want to add a blog to your Starlight site. This would allow you to do that. So you can like share your updates or whatever, your development log or whatever it is you want to add to, like, that's not something that we've had to do at Astro because like we have our own like whole Astro site with a blog and blah, blah, blah. But if you're just like a small open source project, you probably don't want like a second site and like have to build that separately. So this is a plugin, some simple config options. Sarah, who was in the chat earlier, converted her personal site to a Starlight site entirely. So it like includes her like blog notes and everything.
That's really cool.
Maybe I could bring that. I can share the
If I could
URL probably.
If I
wanna
can
see this in
tweak
action.
like a blog to use podcast and everything too, it would be perfect. This is me not wanting to
Oh,
rewrite, and
man.
I keep thinking about rewriting.
Yeah, I wonder that, like, because podcast is like the it's RSS, but it's kind of special RSS, right? With the like a
Yeah, and
feed.
I don't think we do a great job with that special piece, but maybe we do. The blog, it's great. So yeah, here's Sarah. Sarah's got a cool like red tone to hers. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, see, Sarah has the talks and interviews and stuff just like I need. I wonder if she has the guests. I don't see it. Interesting. So, oops, totally clicked the wrong thing. There we go.
Free
Well,
advertising,
I
Sarah.
think we're running up on time, and I always like to kind of just chat for a minute longer. What's up next for Starlight? What's on the roadmap?
Nice. Yeah, well, very soon is going to be full SSR support. So like we kind of talked at the top of the show, like the Astro has this, like, it started as a static site generator, but now does all this extra stuff. You can have all this on-demand rendering. But Starlight, because that's the main docs use case, kind of focused on the static part first. But we're working on shipping the ability to integrate it into your SSR site. So maybe you have like a SaaS or something and you need a docs section. Like you could still build all that with the Astro tools and SSR and stuff, and then plug Starlight in as just part of that. So Sarah mentioned that in the chat. I think she said like, hey, you can add it to your own like existing site. So same basic idea, but to make sure we fully support that for SSR. We're working on expanding our components. We have like a really nice file tree component that we built for the Astro docs that we want to make available to everyone. With a really nice, it has a really nice authoring experience. You basically just write a bulleted list, like a indented list, and it turns it into a beautiful file tree with like icons based on the file names and stuff like
Unfortunately,
that. So
Chris,
we have a bunch of really cool components that are coming.
I think Chris is pausing a little bit, unfortunately. So
what else is on my
hopefully,
list?
if he can hear me and I don't completely talk over him, I'm just gonna say thank you. I appreciate it. I love what Astro's doing and Starlight. Chris, sorry we had a couple issues come up here on the video side of things, but if you can hear me, this is thank you and goodbye to everyone. Thanks again for joining.